The next morning came slowly, as if the sun itself was unsure about rising. The fog still hung over Murky Lake, curling around the trees and roofs like soft smoke. Inside his small hut, Ravi sat by the fire, staring at the strange box he had pulled from the lake. It sat in the same corner, still covered by a piece of cloth. He had not dared to touch it again since last night. His mother, old and weak, was awake now. She sat on her mat sipping tea, her thin hands trembling slightly. She noticed her son's uneasy face and asked gently, "Ravi, what troubles you? You've been staring at that corner since dawn." Ravi hesitated. He didn't want to worry her. "It's nothing, Ma," he said softly. "Just something I found in the lake." "An old box." Her eyes narrowed. "You brought something from the lake?" "Yes," he replied, still looking at it. "It was caught in my net. It looks ancient. I thought maybe someone in the village would know about it." His mother frowned. "The lake has been strange for years, my son. You should not bring things from its depths. Sometimes what sleeps below wants to stay forgotten." Ravi forced a smile, trying to calm her. "It's just a piece of metal, Ma, don't worry." But inside, he couldn't stop thinking about the faint hum he had heard last night, the strange warmth of the box's surface, and the feeling that it was somehow alive. After breakfast, Ravi decided to visit the village elder, Hari, an old man who knew many stories about the past. He covered the box again with the cloth, tied it with rope, and placed it in a basket. As he walked down the narrow dirt path, people nodded at him politely. Some looked curiously at the covered basket he carried. When Ravi reached Hari's hut near the banyan tree, the old man was sitting outside, mending a fishing net. His white beard touched his chest and his wrinkled hands moved slowly but steadily. "Good morning, Ravi," Hari said in his calm, deep voice. "You look troubled. What brings you here so early?" Ravi placed the basket before him and carefully lifted the cloth. The dull metal glinted faintly in the morning light. "I found this in the lake," Ravi said. "It was tangled in my net." Hari stopped working and leaned forward. His eyes widened a little as he saw the strange carvings on the box. He touched the surface lightly, then pulled his hand back. "It's cold," he murmured. "Too cold for the morning air." "Yes," Ravi said. "Even last night it felt the same. And it made a sound, like something moving inside." Hari's face grew serious. He studied the carvings more closely, tracing them with a stick. "These marks are old," he said slowly. "Older than our village. Older than the temples in the forest." He looked up at Ravi. "You said it came from the lake?" Ravi nodded. Hari sighed deeply. "Many years ago, when my grandfather was a boy, people believed there was a temple buried beneath Murky Lake. They said it sank after a great storm, long before our time. The lake was once a valley full of people, but one night thunder rolled and rain fell for days. The earth opened and water swallowed the whole place. Only the tops of the trees were seen after that. Since then, strange things have rested under that water." Ravi listened, his curiosity mixing with fear. "You think this box came from that old place?" "It could be," Hari said. "But if so, it might carry something sacred or something cursed. Either way, it does not belong here." Ravi frowned. "You mean I should throw it back?" The old man's eyes softened. "Sometimes things from the deep must remain there, my boy. But if your heart tells you to know more, do it carefully. Do not open it alone. Bring it here tonight. I will prepare some herbs and prayers for safety." Ravi nodded, though his mind was still full of questions. He covered the box again and walked back home. The path felt longer this time. The trees seemed to whisper softly as he passed, and each step made his heart beat faster. When he reached the hut, his mother was sitting outside, weaving a basket. She looked at him with tired eyes. "Did Hari say what it was?" Ravi shook his head. "He said it's old, maybe from a time before our village. He asked me to bring it to him tonight." She nodded slowly, though worry shadowed her face. "Be careful, Ravi. Some things are not meant to be touched." He smiled gently, trying to hide his fear. "I will, Ma, don't worry." But as the day went on, Ravi's thoughts stayed on the box. He couldn't help glancing at it again and again. It almost felt like it was calling to him, whispering softly inside his head. By afternoon, the wind picked up. Dark clouds moved over the lake. Ravi went out to check his nets, but his eyes kept drifting toward the water's center. For the first time, he noticed that the surface wasn't calm anymore. Small ripples spread out again and again, even though there was no wind strong enough to cause them. He stood still, watching, It was as if something large moved deep below. He shook his head and returned to his boat, trying to ignore it. When night came, Ravi wrapped the box once more and started toward Hari's hut. The air was thick and quiet, and the moon hid behind clouds. Crickets sang, and the lake glimmered faintly in the dark. Halfway there, Ravi thought he heard footsteps behind him. He turned quickly, holding the lantern high, but no one was there. Only the sound of the wind through dry grass. When he reached Hari's hut, he found the old man sitting beside a small fire. Herbs and strange powders were spread on a cloth. "Sit, Ravi," Hari said calmly. "We will see what this box wants to tell us." Ravi placed it gently before him. The firelight danced across its carvings, making them seem alive. Hari sprinkled some herbs around the box and murmured old words under his breath. The smoke rose in thin blue threads. Then slowly he reached for the lock. The metal felt cold, almost biting to the touch. He tried to move it, but it stayed firm. Then a small sound, like a sigh, escaped from the box. Ravi tensed. Hari's eyes grew wide. "It's reacting," he whispered. The fire flickered wildly, as if a gust of wind had passed through the hut. The old man dropped his hand. "Enough, this is not ordinary. There's power here, old power. You must not open it yet." Ravi's voice shook slightly. "Then what should I do?" "Keep it sealed," Hari said. "And whatever happens, don't listen if it calls to you. The lake keeps secrets for a reason." Ravi nodded slowly, though confusion filled his mind. He thanked Hari and walked back home. The road was darker now, and fog had begun to rise again from the lake's edge. He could hear the quiet lapping of water, slow and steady, almost like breathing. When he entered his hut, his mother was asleep. The fire was low. He placed the box in the same corner again and sat near it, holding his head in his hands. The silence was deep. He could hear only his own heartbeat. Then, very softly, came a whisper. Not from outside. From inside the box. It wasn't a word at first, just a faint humming sound. Then it became clearer, like a soft voice trying to speak through water. "Ravi." He froze. He looked at the box. The cloth over it trembled slightly. His breath caught in his throat. He whispered, "Who's there?" The voice came again, quiet but distinct. "Help me." Ravi's hands shook. He wanted to run outside, but something deep inside told him to listen. He stepped closer, heart pounding. "Who are you?" Silence followed for a moment, then a gentle hum filled the room again, like the sound of water moving through stones. Ravi pulled the cloth away slowly. The carvings on the metal glowed faintly blue. As if light was coming from within, he whispered, "This can't be real." The glow faded, and the box went still again. Ravi sat beside it till dawn, his mind full of fear and wonder. When the sun finally rose, the lake looked calm once more, but something in the air felt changed. Birds circled the water's edge but never flew across it. Even the wind seemed to avoid the center. Ravi knew now that what he had pulled from the lake was no ordinary treasure. It was something ancient, something waiting, and it had spoken his name. The next few days in the small village of Darapur passed in uneasy silence. The sky stayed gray, and the fog over Murky Lake never lifted completely. People whispered that the weather felt strange, but no one knew why. For Ravi, every night was the same, restless, heavy, and full of whispers. Since the night the box had spoken his name, he could not sleep peacefully. Sometimes he heard the faint hum again. Sometimes he imagined soft ripples moving across the floor as if water had filled his hut. But every morning, when the sun rose, everything looked normal again. Ravi told no one about the voice. Not even Hari, the old village elder. He feared that if he told anyone, they would think he had lost his mind, or worse. They would throw the box back into the lake before he could understand what it was. The strange thing was, even though the voice frightened him, it also pulled him closer. Each time he looked at the box, he felt a strange warmth in his chest, a curiosity that refused to fade. That morning, Ravi went to the lake again. The water looked darker than ever, yet he couldn't stay away. His wooden boat creaked as he pushed it out into the mist. He rowed slowly, looking down at the black surface. The reflection of the sky looked like smoke trapped in glass. He spoke softly, almost as if talking to himself. "What are you trying to tell me?" The only answer was the quiet splash of oars. He dropped his net again, but his hands trembled slightly. He didn't want another surprise from the depths, but he couldn't fight his habit. The lake was still his only hope for food. Minutes passed. Nothing moved. Just when Ravi thought the lake had gone silent forever, he noticed something strange. The water near his boat began to ripple in perfect circles. It wasn't the wind. The ripples came from beneath, moving outward, wide and slow. He froze, eyes wide. Then a faint shimmer appeared under the surface, like light trapped beneath the water. He leaned closer, his breath fogging the air. The glow grew brighter, soft blue, the same color that had glowed on the box carvings 2 nights before. Ravi's heart raced. He whispered, "You again." Suddenly the light vanished. The water turned still. A second later, the rope of his net pulled tight so hard that the boat jerked. Ravi grabbed it quickly. "Not again," he muttered, pulling with all his strength. But this time the weight wasn't as heavy as before. He pulled the net up and found something small tangled inside, something round and shining. He reached in and took it out. It was a coin, covered in mud but made of the same metal as the box. The carvings on it were similar, tiny waves and strange symbols. Ravi wiped it clean with his sleeve and stared at it. The metal felt warm in his hand. Then faintly he heard the same whisper that had come from the box. It was so soft it might have been the wind, but it carried a single word. Closer. Ravi dropped the coin into the boat, breathing hard. "Who are you?" he shouted into the fog. The echo of his voice came back, quiet and hollow. He waited, but nothing answered. The lake was silent again. He picked up the coin carefully and rowed back to shore, his thoughts tangled. When he reached home, his mother looked up from her chair. "You look pale," she said softly. Ravi forced a smile. "I'm fine, Ma, just tired," she frowned. "You've been tired since the day you brought that box. Maybe it is not just your body that feels heavy. Maybe it is your spirit." Ravi said nothing. He went inside and placed the coin beside the box. For a moment both objects glowed faintly, as if they recognized each other. He stared, mouth slightly open. Then the light faded again. That night, Ravi couldn't stay still. He sat beside the box, watching the carvings shimmer faintly in the dim light. Finally, he whispered, "I can hear you. What do you want from me?" The answer came almost at once, soft and deep, like a sound from underwater. "Free me." Ravi's breath caught. "Who are you?" "I am the one who sleeps," the voice said. "Long ago the lake was my home. Men built over it, took from it, forgot what it was. The storm buried all, and I remained beneath. You pulled me out." Ravi's mind spun. The voice sounded neither male nor female. It was gentle yet powerful, like wind moving through a cave. He swallowed hard. "Are you a spirit?" A pause. "Then not a spirit. A keeper, a guardian of water. But my prison holds my strength. Only one with faith could bring me out." Ravi didn't know whether to believe it. But deep inside something about the voice felt true. "What happens if I open the box?" he asked quietly. The answer came in a whisper that chilled his skin. "Then I will be free, and the lake will breathe again." He hesitated. "And if I don't?" "Then the water will sleep forever. The life of the lake will die." The fire cracked beside him. He looked toward his sleeping mother, then back at the box. If what the voice said was true, maybe he could help the lake. Maybe the fish would return. Maybe the village would live well again. But Hari's warning echoed in his mind. "Do not open it alone." Ravi clenched his fists. He said softly, "Not yet." The voice went quiet. That night his dreams were filled with water. He saw the lake not as it was, but as it used to be, clear, full of shining fish with trees and birds all around. But then clouds gathered, thunder roared, and the ground split apart. He saw a temple sink beneath waves and a bright light vanish under the surface. When he woke, his clothes were damp with sweat. Outside, the morning air smelled strange, like wet earth after heavy rain, though no rain had fallen. He stepped out and looked toward the lake. To his surprise, the fog was clearing for the first time in weeks. The surface shone faintly under the rising sun. For a moment, hope flickered in his heart. Maybe the voice was right. He decided to go to Hari again. When he reached the old man's hut, Hari looked troubled. "I felt something last night," he said before Ravi could speak. The air was heavy. "The lake is changing again." Ravi nodded slowly. "The box spoke to me." Hari's eyes widened. "It spoke?" "Yes," Ravi said quietly. "It said it's a guardian, trapped for a long time. It wants me to open it." Hari's hand trembled slightly. "Did you?" "No, not yet. The old man let out a breath of relief. Good. You must not open it alone, Ravi. Such things test a man's heart. If it is a guardian, it may need freedom, but if it lies, it could bring ruin. You must wait. I will come tonight. Together we will see what truth hides inside. Ravi agreed. He returned home and waited through the long day. The sun felt stronger, and for the first time in months, a few birds landed near the lake. It gave him a strange kind of comfort. As night fell, Hari came with a small pouch of herbs and an oil lamp. The two men sat by the box. Ravi's mother slept in the next room, unaware of what was happening. Hari sprinkled the herbs and whispered old words again. The lamp flame bent, flickering toward the box. Now, Hari said quietly, ask it what it wants again. Ravi nodded and spoke softly. Are you there? The air grew cooler. The faint hum began again. Then came the voice, smooth and calm. I am here. Hari leaned forward, eyes wide. What are you? He asked. I am the keeper of this lake, the voice answered, bound by stone and metal when men broke their promise to the waters. I kept the balance. Now the world above forgets and the lake sleeps. Hari looked at Ravi. It speaks truth. Such tales were told in the old songs. Ravi's heart raced. How can we free you? Break the seal, the voice said softly. But not with force, with faith. The one who believes must touch the carvings in the right order. Then the lock will open. Hari hesitated. It could be dangerous. The old ones used seals not only to trap evil, but to protect power too great for men. Ravi nodded. But if it's true, the lake could live again. Hari sighed. Then we must do it carefully. Tomorrow, when the sun rises. Light will protect us better than darkness. The voice said nothing more. The air went still again. That night, Ravi barely slept. The sound of water filled his dreams again, but this time it was peaceful. He saw fish swimming freely, children laughing, and the lake shining under a golden sky. When dawn came, Ravi and Hari sat beside the box once more. The old man said softly, If your heart is pure, it will answer to you. Touch the carvings as you saw them in your dream. Ravi took a deep breath. He placed his hand on the box. The metal felt warm again, alive. He slowly traced the carvings in the shape of a circle, then an eye, then a wave, just as he had seen in his sleep. The box shivered faintly. Hari held his breath. A soft light spread through the symbols, moving like flowing water. The lock made a faint click. Ravi stepped back. The lid lifted slowly by itself. Inside, there was no treasure, no gold, no jewels. There was only water, clear and glowing softly like liquid light. And from it rose a small orb of brightness. Floating just above the box, Hari whispered, By the spirits, it's pure life energy. Ravi stared in wonder as the light rose higher, glowing brighter. Then it drifted slowly toward the door, out of the hut, and toward the lake. Both men followed in silence. The orb floated over the dark water, then sank gently beneath the surface. A moment later, the lake began to shimmer. The mist broke apart and sunlight spilled across the waves. Fish jumped, birds cried overhead, and the smell of clean water filled the air. Ravi felt tears in his eyes. It's alive again. Hari smiled faintly. Yes, my boy. You did it. But as they turned to leave, a small, distant voice whispered through the breeze, soft, gentle, but with a hint of warning. Thank you, Ravi. But the deep never forgets who wakes it. Ravi looked back at the shining lake, a strange unease growing in his heart. He didn't yet know. This was only the beginning. Morning light touched the sleepy village of Darapur. Birds chirped softly in the trees, but the lake at the edge of the village stayed quiet, covered in gray mist that moved like slow smoke over the water. For as long as anyone could remember, people called it Murky Lake. Years ago, it was bright and full of life. Children swam there in summer, and fishermen filled their baskets with shining silver fish. But now the water looked dark, almost black. The air around it always felt heavy and cold, even when the sun was strong. People said the lake had changed after one stormy night long ago. Lightning had struck the center of the lake, and since then strange things happened. Fish disappeared, the water smelled different, and sometimes people said they saw lights glowing under the surface at night. Most villagers avoided the place, but Ravi, a humble fisherman, still went there every morning. Ravi lived in a small hut near the edge of the forest with his old mother. Life had been hard since his father passed away 5 years ago. His father had been a strong, kind man who taught him how to fish, fix nets, and read the waves. Ravi still remembered his father's voice saying, "The lake gives to those who respect it." But now the lake seemed to give nothing. Ravi's net often came back empty, and the few fish he caught were small and weak. Even then, he never gave up. He woke before dawn each day, tied his nets, and pushed his old wooden boat into the still water. That morning was no different. At first, the fog was thick. The sun was hidden. Ravi rowed slowly, the wooden oars creaking softly. The surface of the lake looked calm but strange, almost oily. The silence around him was heavy, and only the sound of his oars echoed in the mist. When he reached the middle of the lake, he paused. Something about the stillness made his heart beat a little faster. It felt as if someone or something was watching him from beneath the surface. He shook the thought away. He had been coming here since childhood. There was nothing to fear. He took his net, checked its knots, and threw it high into the air. It opened wide and fell onto the water with a quiet splash. Ripples spread slowly, then faded. Ravi waited, holding the rope in his rough hands. Minutes passed. Nothing moved. The rope hung loose, showing no sign of life below. Ravi sighed. "Not again," he muttered. Just as he started pulling the net back, something pulled back. The rope went tight so suddenly that his hands almost slipped. His boat rocked hard. His heart jumped. Something heavy was caught inside the net. He braced his feet and began to pull. It didn't feel like a fish. Whatever it wasn't moving. It was heavy, solid. The rope cut into his palms as he pulled inch by inch. The boat creaked, water splashing against its sides. Finally, the net rose above the surface. Black water dripped down, carrying pieces of mud and weed. Ravi's breath caught when he saw what was inside. It was not a fish. It was a box, a large square box covered in thick mud and roots. He blinked in surprise. The box was made of metal, but it had strange carvings all over its surface. Lines, curves, and symbols he didn't recognize. It looked very old, maybe older than the village itself. Ravi reached out and touched it. The surface was icy cold, even though his hands were warm from rowing. A strange chill ran through his arm. He frowned. "What are you doing here?" he whispered. The fog around him thickened, swirling slowly. The lake was completely silent now, no birds, no waves, not even the sound of insects. It was as if the whole world had stopped to watch him. Ravi hesitated. Part of him wanted to throw the box back into the lake. Another part, his curious, human part, wanted to know what was inside. He lifted the box onto the boat. It landed with a dull thud. Mud splattered across the wooden floor. The box had a small lock on the front. Rust covered it, but it didn't look broken. Ravi tried to lift the lid. It didn't move. Then, as he was examining the carvings, he heard a soft click. He froze. The lock had turned slightly, by itself. Ravi's breath came out slow and shaky. He looked around, but the fog was too thick to see anything beyond his boat. He could feel his heart thudding in his chest. He whispered, "It's just old metal. Maybe the water loosened it." But deep down, he didn't believe his own words. Something about the lake felt wrong now. The air had grown colder. He noticed tiny ripples forming near the boat's edge, circular ripples like something was moving beneath. Ravi slowly pushed the box to one side and picked up his oar. He tapped the water lightly, listening for any sound. Nothing answered him, only silence. Then from below the boat came a dull, heavy thump. Ravi's eyes widened. The sound came again, a little louder this time, as if something large had brushed against the boat's bottom. He could feel the wooden planks vibrate under his feet. He leaned over the side carefully, staring into the black water. He saw nothing but his own reflection, trembling in the ripples. For a long minute, he didn't move. Finally, the water went still again. He sat back down, breathing deeply. "Maybe it was a fish," he whispered. "A big one." He looked at the strange box again. Mud was slowly drying on its surface, revealing more symbols. Some looked like waves, others like eyes. Ravi decided to take it home. Maybe someone in the village would know what it was. Maybe it could be worth something. He needed money to buy medicine for his mother. He started rowing back toward the shore, glancing at the box from time to time. The fog followed his boat like a quiet shadow. When he reached land, he pulled the boat up and carried the box toward his hut. It was heavy, but he managed to drag it inside. His mother was still asleep, so he placed the box in the corner near the fire pit. As the flames flickered, strange reflections danced across the carvings. Ravi couldn't take his eyes off it. The more he stared, the more the symbols seemed to move, very slowly, like ripples in water. He blinked, rubbed his eyes, and they were still again. He sighed. "I'm tired." "It's nothing," he told himself. He washed his hands, made some tea, and sat by the fire. But he couldn't shake the feeling that something inside the box was aware of him. When night came, Ravi lay on his mat but couldn't sleep. The sound of the lake wind whispered through the cracks in the walls. Every few minutes the fire popped softly. Then, somewhere in the darkness, he heard it again. Click. The same metallic sound as before. Ravi sat up, heart pounding. The box was still in the corner, half in shadow. He watched it closely. The lid moved just a little. He stood up slowly, took the lantern, and stepped closer. His breath trembled. The carvings looked deeper now, sharper in the light. He touched the lid gently. It was warm. Suddenly, the box gave a faint shudder, like something alive was inside trying to breathe. Ravi jumped back. The lantern shook in his hand. He stared at it for a long time. Then he did the only thing that felt right. He covered the box with a thick cloth and stepped outside. The night air was cool. Stars blinked faintly above, but the lake was still hidden in mist. He stood at the edge of the water, staring into the darkness, wondering if he should throw the box back. But something inside him whispered no. Not yet. He couldn't explain it. But he felt that whatever was in that box wasn't done with him yet. He turned back to the hut. The cloth covering the box moved slightly, as if touched by a breeze. Even though the air inside was still, and faintly, from beneath the cloth came a low hum. Ravi froze at the door, eyes wide. Then the fire flickered and went out. The hut fell into silence. Outside, the lake rippled once, though there was no wind. And from deep below its dark surface, a single bubble rose slowly and burst, releasing a whisper that sounded almost like a sigh. Ravi didn't know it yet, but by pulling that box from the depths, he had awakened something that had slept for a very long time. The morning after the golden light had covered the lake, the whole village stood gathered at the shore. No one had ever seen the water so clear. It sparkled in the sunlight like liquid glass. The air smelled clean, and the sound of small waves gently lapping against the sand filled everyone's heart with peace. Children laughed and pointed at fish swimming near the surface, bright silver ones that hadn't been seen in years. Old men stood silently, staring with tears in their eyes. They had thought the lake was dead forever, and in the middle of it all stood Ravi, quiet and thoughtful. His clothes were still damp from the night before, and his eyes looked tired but calm. In his hands he held the small pale stone that had once glowed like fire. Mira stood beside him. "Everyone wants to know what happened," she whispered. "They saw the light last night. They're calling it a miracle." Ravi looked at the villagers. "It wasn't a miracle," he said softly. "It was the lake waking up. It just needed to be remembered." The people murmured among themselves. Some looked confused, others amazed. An old fisherman named Hari stepped forward. "Ravi, for years we threw our nets here and found nothing. You come one night and the lake shines again." "What did you do?" Ravi hesitated. He didn't know how to explain everything. The voice, the guardian, the box, and the strange power inside the stone. It all sounded too unbelievable. "I listened," he finally said. "That's all. I listened to the water, like my father once told me to." The villagers exchanged looks. Some smiled kindly, others shook their heads. But Ravi didn't try to convince them. He knew the truth, and that was enough. Over the next few days, life in the village began to change. The lake that had been silent for years became full of life. Fish returned, the birds nested near the reeds again, and the trees around the shore turned greener than before. It felt as if the entire world around the lake was healing. Ravi went fishing again, but he didn't take much. Only what he needed. Each time he threw his net, he would whisper a small thank you to the water. But there was something new, too. Each time he looked at the lake, he felt it was watching him back. It wasn't frightening. It was peaceful, almost like the lake trusted him now. One evening, as the sun began to set, Ravi sat alone by the shore. The golden light from the setting sun reflected off the water like liquid fire. Mira came and sat beside him. "Do you ever think it will fade again?" she asked. Ravi shook his head. Not if we take care of it. The lake only turned dark because people forgot how to respect it. But now maybe they will remember. Mira smiled softly. You sound like your father. Ravi chuckled quietly. He always said the lake had a heart. I never believed him. But now I know he was right. They sat in silence for a long time, watching the ripples move gently across the glowing surface. That night, when Ravi returned to his small shed to rest, he noticed something strange. The stone that had lost its glow began to shine again, faint at first, then brighter. A soft hum filled the room, gentle and calming. He picked it up carefully. The warmth spread through his hand again, but this time it felt familiar, like an old friend. Then he heard the whisper once more, soft, like a breeze through the reeds. The balance is not yet complete, Keeper. Ravi froze. Keeper? He repeated aloud. The voice continued, echoing gently. The lake is alive again, but its heart still waits for a guide. The water remembers you, and it has chosen. Ravi's heartbeat quickened. Chosen? What do you mean? But there was no answer, only the sound of the wind outside and the faint rippling of the lake in the distance. The next morning, Ravi felt different. His body was the same, but his senses seemed sharper. He could hear the faint sounds of fish moving in the deep water, the rustle of reeds even from far away, and the whisper of the breeze that carried messages he could almost understand. When he touched the surface of the lake, small circles of light formed around his fingers, fading slowly as he lifted them away. At first, he thought he was imagining things, but each day that passed, the feeling grew stronger. The lake wasn't just alive, it was connected to him. Days turned into weeks. The village prospered again. Boats returned to the water and laughter filled the air. People called the lake the living lake, but every time Ravi went out on his boat, the water seemed to calm around him. No waves touched his sides, no wind disturbed his net. It was as if the lake protected him. One afternoon, an old villager came running to his house, breathless and frightened. Ravi, come quickly. The northern side of the lake is boiling. Ravi ran to the shore with the others. There, near the far bank, the water was bubbling violently. Steam rose high into the air. Birds flew away in panic. The villagers backed away, shouting in fear. It's the curse again, someone cried. The lake is angry. Ravi stepped forward. No, he said quietly. It's calling. He could feel it, the deep pull in his chest like the lake was reaching out to him. He grabbed his small boat and pushed it into the water despite everyone shouting for him to stop. Ravi, come back, Mira cried. It's too dangerous. He turned and smiled gently. Trust me, Mira, it's all right. He rowed toward the boiling water. As he got closer, the surface grew darker. The golden light that had once filled the lake began to fade, replaced by swirling shadows. The water was restless, moving like something beneath it was trying to rise. Then he saw it. The same shadow that had appeared before. It was larger now, stronger, but instead of feeling fear, Ravi felt calm. He knew it wasn't evil. It was the true spirit of the lake waiting for him. He held up the glowing stone. I'm here, he said softly. Tell me what you need. The water rose around him, forming a spiral of mist and light. The voice returned, louder this time, echoing all around. The lake lives again, but its heart must be bound to its keeper. Will you stay to guide it? Ravi swallowed hard. He understood what the voice meant, but it also scared him. If I stay, what happens to me? You will not die, the voice said. You will become one with the water. You will feel what it feels, breathe what it breathes. The lake will never fall silent again. Ravi looked back toward the shore. He could see Mira standing there, her hands clasped together, eyes full of tears. He took a deep breath. If this is what it takes to protect it, then yes, I will stay. The water glowed brighter, surrounding his boat. The air filled with golden light once more. The villagers shielded their eyes. Mira called out his name, but her voice was lost in the sound of the waves and the hum that filled the sky. Then the lake became still again, smooth as glass. The boat was gone. Mira fell to her knees, crying softly. Ravi might, but then something amazing happened. The water began to shimmer, and the same calm voice whispered across the wind, soft, kind, and familiar. Do not cry. I am here. Mira looked up. The water rippled, and she saw a reflection. Ravi's face smiling back at her, made of light and water. Her tears turned to a smile. You kept your promise, she whispered. From that day forward, the lake never turned murky again. It stayed clear and alive, glowing softly at night under the moonlight. Fishermen always returned with full nets, and travelers who came from far away said they could feel peace just by standing near its shore. The villagers built a small shrine by the lake with Ravi's old fishing net hanging beside it. They called him the keeper of the lake. People would come there to offer flowers and whisper their thanks before casting their nets. And sometimes, when the wind was still, the villagers said they could hear his voice across the water, gentle and calm, guiding the waves. Years passed and Mira grew old, but she never left the village. Every evening she sat by the shore talking softly to the lake. And every evening the water rippled softly near her feet, as if answering her back. On her last night the moon was full and the air was peaceful. She closed her eyes and whispered, "I'm coming home." The next morning, the villagers found her sitting peacefully by the lake, her face calm, the water around her glowing faintly like morning light. From that day, they said the lake had two lights beneath its surface, one golden and one silver. The golden one was Ravi, the keeper. The silver one was Mira, his heart. And so, the lake remained alive for generations, its waters clear, its surface shining under the stars. Children who played by its banks grew up hearing the same story again and again. The story of the fisherman who cast his net into a murky lake and pulled out not just a box, but the soul of nature itself. They said if you stood by the shore at dawn and listened closely, you could still hear the soft whisper of the water saying, "The lake remembers its keeper." The storm that had swept across the lake the night before had calmed by morning, but the air still felt heavy, filled with a strange kind of silence. The trees stood motionless, the water smooth like glass. The mist hung low and the world around the lake seemed half asleep, almost afraid to move. Ravi woke before sunrise. He had barely slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the golden light that came from the box, the carvings that seemed to move on their own, and the eyes, those eyes he thought he saw staring up from beneath the water. He sat at the edge of his small wooden bed, rubbing his face. His heart felt tired. He had not told anyone what really happened at the lake, not even Mira. She only knew that he had found something strange and that he planned to return it, but deep inside, Ravi wasn't sure what he believed anymore. The box was now hidden beneath the old cloth in his shed. He had tried to open it again the night before, but the lock refused to move as if it had sealed itself. Yet he could still hear faint sounds inside, soft humming like a faraway song echoing through water. When the first light touched the horizon, Ravi stepped outside. Mira was already awake, standing near the doorway. Her face looked pale and worried. "You're going back, aren't you?" she asked quietly. He nodded. "I have to, Mira. Whatever that box is, it belongs to the lake. Not to me." She stepped closer and held his arm. "You don't owe the lake anything. That water has only brought pain to this village. People have lost too much already." Ravi looked toward the lake, its surface still and dark. Maybe that's because no one tried to understand it. Maybe it's waiting for someone to listen. Mira's eyes filled with tears. "Please come back safely." He gave her a small smile. "I will." Ravi took his old boat and pushed it into the quiet lake once again. The oars creaked as he rowed, the sound echoing across the still water. He reached the center where the current was deepest and dropped the small anchor. For a long moment he just sat there, staring at the reflection of the gray sky above. He took the box out carefully. Even in daylight it looked alive. The symbols carved on its surface glowed faintly, like gold veins under the dirt. Ravi placed his hand on it and whispered, "I don't know what you are, but I want to do what's right." As he spoke, the water around his boat began to ripple slowly, even though there was no wind. The sound of the humming grew louder, not from the box, but from the lake itself. Ravi's eyes widened as faint circles of light appeared beneath the surface. They moved slowly, forming patterns like the carvings on the box. Suddenly the boat rocked. Something large moved beneath him. Ravi grabbed the edge to steady himself, his heart pounding. Then from the depths a shadow began to rise. It was huge, larger than any creature Ravi had ever seen. Its shape was unclear, hidden by the dark water, but its presence was powerful. The surface of the lake shimmered and Ravi could feel an energy vibrating in the air. The shadow stopped just beneath the boat. For a second all was still. Then a deep voice echoed, not through the air but directly inside Ravi's mind. The keeper returns what was lost. Ravi gasped and looked around, but no one was there. "Who's speaking?" he asked aloud. "You hold what was sealed long ago," the voice replied. "You woke the memory of the lake." "The memory of the lake?" Ravi whispered. The water rippled again and a faint light began to rise from beneath the surface. Slowly a shape appeared, a figure not quite human made of shimmering water and golden light. It floated above the lake, its face calm but unreadable. Ravi's breath caught. "Who are you?" "I am the guardian of this lake," the figure said softly. "Long ago this water was sacred. The box you found holds the essence that once gave life to it, but it was taken and buried, and the lake began to die." Ravi stared in disbelief. "Why was it buried?" "Because people forgot respect," the voice replied. "They took more than they gave. The lake became filled with greed, and the essence had to be hidden to protect it." Ravi lowered his head. "Then I must return it." "Tell me how." The figure looked at him with eyes like rippling waves. "You already have the heart to do it. But remember, returning it is not about throwing it away. You must awaken it. The box will open only when the heart within it feels truth." Ravi frowned. "Truth?" "Yes," the voice echoed. "The truth that lives inside you. The lake does not need an offering. It needs understanding." The figure's light began to fade and the shadow beneath the water started to sink. "Wait," Ravi shouted. "What do I do exactly?" The answer came faint and distant. "Listen to the water and it will show you." Then the figure disappeared, leaving Ravi alone with the quiet ripples. He sat there confused and trembling. "Listen to the water?" he muttered. "What does that mean?" He closed his eyes and let his hand rest in the cool water. The moment his fingers touched it, he felt a pulse soft like a heartbeat. Memories flashed in his mind. His father teaching him to fish, Mira waiting by the shore, the laughter of villagers when the lake was once full of life. And then a voice, gentle this time, like a whisper in his ear, said, "You remember the lake. That is enough." The box in his lap began to glow softly. The lock made a faint click. Slowly the lid lifted by itself. Inside there was no treasure, no jewels, only a small stone, round and smooth, glowing with a golden light. Ravi lifted it carefully. The warmth spread through his hand, filling him with calm, but then the lake began to move again, stronger this time. Waves slapped against the sides of the boat. The glow in the stone grew brighter. Ravi held it close, trying to keep his balance. From beneath the surface he saw the shadow rise again, but this time it wasn't alone. Dozens of smaller lights appeared beneath the water, swirling like stars. The dark lake began to shine from within. Ravi's eyes widened as he saw fish swimming again, their silver scales catching the light. The lake that had been silent for years was alive once more. He smiled, tears in his eyes. "It's coming back to life." But just as he whispered those words, the waves grew violent. The shadow beneath the boat surged upward, hitting it from below. The boat rocked dangerously. Ravi almost dropped the stone. Then a deep rumble echoed across the lake, shaking the air. The light from the stone shot into the sky like a golden beam. The mist around him spun faster, forming a whirlpool of light and air. Ravi gripped the side of the boat, shouting over the roar. "What's happening?" The voice returned. "The balance must be complete. One who wakes the essence must also guide it. Do not let it fall back into silence." Ravi didn't understand, but he knew he had to protect the stone. He held it tightly against his chest as the boat spun in the waves. Then suddenly everything went still. The golden beam faded, the mist thinned, and Ravi found himself drifting gently near the shore. The lake looked calm again, clearer than before. The reflection of the sun sparkled on its surface. He looked at the stone in his hand. It had turned pale, almost transparent, like a drop of frozen water. Ravi sighed deeply. He felt both relief and confusion. "What now?" he whispered. He rowed back to the shore slowly. Mira ran toward him, her eyes wide with worry. "Ravi, what happened?" The whole lake was glowing. People from the village came running. He stepped out of the boat, holding the stone out to her. "It's alive again, Mira. The lake." "It's breathing." She stared at the water. Indeed, the air around the lake smelled fresh. Birds were already circling above. The dark color of the water had changed. It was now light blue, shimmering softly. Mira touched the stone. "It's beautiful. But what is it? Ravi shook his head. I don't know, but I think it's part of the lake now, and maybe so am I. That night, as the stars filled the sky, Ravi couldn't sleep. He sat by the shore, watching the reflection of the moon in the water. The stone rested beside him, faintly glowing again. Then he saw it. A faint figure standing in the middle of the lake, glowing like before. The guardian. It looked at him one last time and nodded slowly. The voice came one more time, soft as wind over water. The lake remembers its keeper. And with that, the figure vanished beneath the waves. Ravi smiled, feeling peace for the first time in years. The murky lake was no longer murky. It was alive, shining under the moonlight. But deep below, unseen by anyone, the shadow still moved slowly, guarding the heart of the lake.